It's October 8th, a day after the hardest year for the Jewish people. And joining us is Jonathan York. He is a law school graduate from Stanford and a storyteller. And right after October 7th, he went to Israel and made a film that you must all see. And today, his Sukah Project is opening at the Skirball Center. So we have a lot to talk about, Jonathan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, you do so much. You're so passionate. You're an artist, and you're a lawyer, and you're in real estate, and you're like the jack of all trades. And you told me with so much passion in your eyes that right after October 7th, you felt a need to go to Israel. And tell us what happened for you when you went.
I remember that day. I remember it was actually the end of the Sukkot holiday, ironically, last year. And I was due to welcome 100 people into my house for Sukkot. And that didn't happen. And the rest of the day I was sitting in front of the TV and scrolling. And the rest of the few weeks that ensued, I was, as is my normal habit, watching the broadcast straight from Israel, Channel 12 News, which is their main station, and just feeling completely helpless. And I know that there are a lot of people who felt the same thing. At a certain point in early December, I decided I just had to go. I couldn't be this far away anymore. And I bought a ticket, and I had really no plan, no arrangements. I just knew that I had to be there and find a way to feel and be useful. I certainly didn't have any intention of creating a film, but I came home after 3 weeks with so many stories from kibbutzim that were massacred, from ordinary civilians who had done extraordinary things, like pick up their own handguns, taxi drivers in Tel Aviv who went down with their own weapons and held off terrorists for hours in kibbutzim until the army arrived. I went to funerals of soldiers and shivas of people I didn't know. And I came home with all this story to tell and 19 hours of footage on my phone, recorded vertically, just instinctually. And it was only when I got home and there were so many questions and so much curiosity that I decided I needed to do something more with it. And so that material, I then sat in front of a camera for 7.5 hours in my living room, and I spoke about everything I'd experienced. And that 25 hours became a half-hour film called Al Tira. And to be honest with you, I still, when I was making that film, thought that it would be relevant to my family and friends, and perhaps I'd show it in a synagogue or two here in LA. I never anticipated that it would take off and find a life of its own that it did. Yesterday, to mark the anniversary of October 7th, it was on cable television 3 times. I've shown it 15 times across the country and in Israel, everywhere from Washington, D.C. to Park City, Utah, and in between. And it's been an extraordinary journey, not just to show the film, but to have all of the conversations and discussion that come along with it, that has kept up, unfortunately, with a story that still hasn't ended.
Well, I mean, it's so important to bear witness, and so many of us couldn't. We couldn't travel to Israel, and you did it for all of us. And then you recorded it and turned it into a film so that we could all bear witness, essentially. For people who haven't had the chance to see your film, where can they see it if they want to watch it?
Yeah, the film is continuing to be screened in person, and I'm trying to make my way to as many places as possible. I found that showing it in spaces of community and gathering people has been so profoundly meaningful. And I've had experiences like showing it in Tel Aviv on Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day, on a rooftop on Rothschild Boulevard with Ambassador Michael Oren as my partner in conversation. And it was such an extraordinary moment to talk to a person who is one of the most brilliant historians about not just what happened to us this past 12 months, but what it means in the context of Jewish history. And I've been thinking about that a lot this past week, about one particular phrase that he told me. Ambassador Oren looked at me and said, "Jonathan, this is normal history for the Jewish people. What you've lived through and what we've lived through largely since the Holocaust is a sort of break, is a vacation from the history, not the norm. And unfortunately, what we've returned to is more of the norm."
So sad and so true all at the same time. And you've brought that all home. And then you've created this incredible installation that's opening today at the Skirball Center, the Sukah Project, which incorporates so much of bringing community together and nature and love and Sukkot. For people who know nothing about Sukkot and what it means to you, can you share a little bit with us about the holiday?
Absolutely. Sukkot is one of our 3 festival holidays in Judaism, and it celebrates and commemorates the passing of the Jews through the desert for 40 years on their way to the Holy Land. And specifically, what we do traditionally on Sukkot is each family will build a temporary dwelling in their backyard, typically of wood and leaves and some fabric. And these are meant to emulate those temporary structures that we lived in as a people for 40 years in the desert and that kept us safe and were our refuge. I grew up celebrating this holiday with my grandfather, my mom's dad, who was not just a military man, but also an engineer. And so when I tell you that we built this thing with such a precision and discipline, but also with so much love. And for my cousins and I, it was a highlight of the year to put this thing together and to celebrate and eat in it. So about 6 years ago, after I graduated law school and I was looking for something to put my hands and my heart into, I made for the first time my own sukkah. And each year since, I have reconceived from scratch with a new Jewish concept and a new artistic concept, a new place to gather people. And this year, as you said, I'm walking this extraordinarily fine and strange line between a memorial and a place of celebration. And I can't tell you how weird that has been sometimes. And that was a process of months of thinking and researching and going back to Israel. And ultimately, it was that trip that I took in July, my 3rd trip during the war. When you go to these kibbutzim, you see that the homes are burnt. You see this blackened wood that's been completely scorched. But you see around it, the nature continues to thrive and grow. And I found such a metaphor and a lesson in resilience. And the metaphor for me was that just as nature, even after tragedy, even after being bruised and burned, can find a way to regrow and come back actually stronger and greener, then perhaps so can we as a people. And so this sukkah that I made this year is precisely that. I first burned by hand 6,000 pounds of wood. Wow. To emulate that. You can smell it, you can touch it, and you can see that this wood has been gone through the fire. But around it, I've planted 250 plants in the concrete courtyard of the skirball. And it is a visual metaphor for this idea of rebirth and generation, that something beautiful can grow out of the ashes. The last thing I did to kind of cap this piece was create a soundscape of sounds from all over Israel. I recorded the sound of bees swarming in a moshav in the Galilee. I recorded the sound of the wind going through Mitzperamon crater in the Negev, the sound of water dripping from springs in the hills of Jerusalem, the waves crashing in Tel Aviv. And all around you, when you come to the exhibition, you'll hear those sounds and you'll feel, I hope, a sort of transportation to Israel.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Just thinking about it, I close my eyes, I feel like I've been transported to Israel. And that's incredible. I can't wait to visit. What is your intention really for everyone who comes to visit?
My hope is that people will find what they need, actually. Some people, especially this week, are looking for a place to be in a state of remembrance and commemoration and even mourning. And this sukkah will accommodate that. And some people are looking to be with their family and friends in a place of celebration and hope. And I think at the end of the day, whatever way people come in, I hope that they leave with a sense of pride in their Judaism, with a sense of perspective of our history, that we have been through so much, and that, like this garden, we will grow back stronger.
Oh, Jonathan, you're so brilliant and eloquent and an artist, and an academic all together in one, with such a great sense of who you are. You're so proud of who you are. Where did that come from?
It came from my parents. They raised us in a home where Judaism was not just in the background, but it was something that guided and informed me, and that that connection to the physical place began when I was 5.5 years old and visited Israel for the first time. And I actually took notes from my kindergarten class to take to the Kotel. I mean, for me, I was a 5-year-old going on a pilgrimage that I felt that I was due for my whole long life at that point. And it's grown from there. But even going further back from my immediate upbringing, in addition to my grandfather who brought that Judaism to our lives, including Sukkot, my dad's father was a real tzaddik and an incredible leader of the Jewish community in Esfahan. And so really my ultimate rootedness in my Judaism and in my deep faith, but also my desire to make Judaism a part of my gift to the community and to have it come out from me into the space of other people, comes from my dad's dad, my grandfather, who I unfortunately never met, but really was the centerpiece of that Jewish community.
Not everyone is as fortunate as you or I to have a strong family to really raise you with a love of who you are. What's your message to Jews and non-Jews out there who have never been to Israel, who don't know what Judaism is?
Well, we have an incredible heritage. And one thing that I've been fortunate to do is to tap into it from so many different places. Celebrating the holidays is one, and it may be an obvious one to some people. For some people, Sukkot was not part of their upbringing. There are holidays that get the first tier, like Hanukkah and Passover. So I hope people will really appreciate how much richness there is in our Judaism. You know, the Sukkah is also engraved. I've carved into it these Jewish texts by a true Jewish Renaissance man who lived in the 12th century in Spain. His name was Yehuda Halevi. And he was, in addition to a physician and a philosopher, he was also a brilliant writer and a poet. And he wrote these, what are called Shirei Tzion, Songs of Zion. And it was not obvious for someone living in enlightened, cultured Spain in the 1100s to long for this place that was thousands of miles away and obviously not a flight's distance. But he really found that this was the place that we all ultimately belong. That home is a concept that is good until it's no longer there, and that there's always only ever been one place for the Jewish people that is our final destination. I've lived a wonderful, comfortable life here in Los Angeles, but I only have to go back one generation to my parents to know that a place that you believe is your home and that you've invested in and become part of, it can change almost overnight, and you can be rooted somewhere else before you even know what has happened. And I think that sort of also informs how I feel about Israel and how central it is to our Judaism. It's become sort of chic to parse those out and try and pull Judaism and Zionism away from one another. And it's convenient to those who have an agenda. But for me, they're one and the same. And if you look at our history, there's a reason for that.
I think Judaism is sexy and cool, and you are a true Renaissance man, and I thank you for all that you're doing and for bringing so much light to the world and all the different projects that you're doing. If you don't mind looking right into the camera there and telling everybody why they should come and see the Sukah Project, why they should bring their fans and family. Why should we go see it?
Absolutely. Well, I'd love for you to come visit the Sukah Project. It'll be open during regular museum hours through November 3rd so that everyone has a chance to see it. Bring your friends, your family. It's all age appropriate. And we're going to have a really wonderful grand opening ceremony on October 17th from 6 to 9 p.m. It's a Thursday night. All are welcome. No tickets, no reservations are required. And I am hoping that this is a chance for our community to come together after a very difficult year, where more often than not, when we think of our Judaism, we have been on the defensive, on our back foot, with a sort of asterisk and feeling a need to caveat our Judaism and our excitement about it. And I hope that now, after a year, we can have this Sukkot holiday to really come back into our Jewish joy, which won't be complete until the war is over and the hostages are home. But certainly we owe it to ourselves and to our ancestors and our descendants to take pride in our holidays, in our Judaism, and in each other.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to your parents who raised you and your grandparents who were your role models, really, because that's what makes us who we are. And thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for all that you do. Continue to shine. We can't wait to see what's next coming out from your artistic journey. And I can't wait to come and visit.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to have you at the Skirball.
Can't wait. Guys, make sure to go visit. Take your whole family, your friends, everyone, Jews, not Jews. I think it'll be such an incredible experience for all of us to be in community. And we'll see you all next time right here on Moms Matter.